The cosmos is silent, but sometimes this cold vacuum seems to take a breath and send us a short, sharp hello. Over the past half-century, humanity has repeatedly frozen in front of chart recorders, telescope printouts, and strange codes that appeared where there should have been nothing. Some signals turn out to be pulsars, others, jokes played by terrestrial technology, and still others remain hanging in the air as unanswered questions. In this article, we have collected the most striking stories of such messages, and at the same time recalled what replies Earth has sent out into space. In 1968, the journal Nature published a report that shook the world. A group of scientists from Cambridge announced that they had detected an unusual radio signal coming from the depths of the galaxy. Graduate student Jocelyn Bell, working with the recently built radio telescope, was examining dozens of meters of chart paper coming out from under the recorder pen when she suddenly noticed something strange. The pen began tracing short, strictly periodic pulses with an interval of just over a second. Sometime later, the signal stopped. The telescope could not steer its antenna and was simply scanning a narrow strip of sky. Clearly, the mysterious source had simply moved out of the field of view. Apart from the incredible surprise of receiving such a signal, Bell and her supervisor Anthony Hewish were puzzling over how to announce the discovery. What if it really was an extraterrestrial civilization? Should they reveal the secret to everyone right away? Initially, the object was designated LGM-1, where LGM stood for Little Green Men, Little Green Men. Yet even the discoverers did not take that version seriously. They suspected that these pulses hid an entirely new type of object previously unknown to science. Very soon, those suspicions were confirmed. By the time the first paper was published, for pulsars had already been discovered, the name given to these mysterious radio transmitters. It turned out that pulsars are ultra-compact stellar remnants, neutron stars. Their mass can exceed that of the Sun, while their size is roughly the size of Minsk. Because of this, the density of matter in pulsars is hundreds of billions of times greater than the density of water, and these stars spin around their axes at record-breaking speeds, from thousandths of a second to 4 seconds per rotation. On August 15, 1977, at the Big Ear Radio Telescope in Ohio, Dr. Jerry Emmon was conducting observations as part of the SETI program, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. A printout covered with numbers was coming out of the data processing block. These numbers encoded the signal strength. Frequencies ran horizontally, time vertically. At one point, Emmon saw something completely unusual on the printout. The code 6EQUJ5 stood out clearly. The signal had been picked up exactly on the magic 21-centimeter wavelength, the line at which astronomers most hoped to receive a message from intelligent beings. Emmons circled the mysterious sequence in red and wrote beside it, "Wow." Of course, hypothetical aliens were unlikely to have intended to send us the word 6EQUJ5. The letters simply encoded signal intensity. After 9 came, then B, and so on. Still, the duration and narrow bandwidth of the received emission matched exactly what scientists expected from an artificial source. That night, the telescope was looking toward the constellation Sagittarius, and several stars even became candidates for closer listening. However, in all the years since, no repeat of the signal has ever been found. Moreover, on that August night, the signal should have been picked up by the telescope's second receiver as well. Yet for some reason, that never happened. was not the only candidate for a message from Little Green Men. In March 2003, participants in the SETI at Home project detected another signal 3 times, still considered the strongest candidate for artificial origin in the entire history of the project. Once again, the message arrived on the 21-centimeter line. Doubts about its intelligent origin nevertheless prevented it from being declared the first confirmed extraterrestrial signal. In the region of sky from which it came, there was not a single reasonably close star, and the frequency drift suggested that a hypothetical planet would have to be rotating at an unbelievable speed. The question of the origin of SHGB02 plus 14 remains open to this day. Sometimes astronomers mistake terrestrial noise for alien messages, and the results can be comical. At the Parkes Observatory in Australia, mysterious signals recorded since the late 1990s turn out not to come from space at all, but from an open microwave oven. The truth was finally established only in 2015. The frequency of the received messages matched the frequencies used by microwave ovens, Wi-Fi modules, and 4G modems. Naturally, these devices were the prime suspects. Yet repeated checks showed no correlation between their operation and the appearance of the mysterious pulses. The puzzle was solved quite by accident when someone opened the microwave door before the dish had finished heating. At that exact moment, another mysterious signal appeared on the radio telescope. The situation was so absurd that many people still believe the story was an April Fool's joke. The paper on the microwave interference was indeed submitted to the journal in April. Once all the false signals were ruled out, astronomers could confidently conclude that so-called fast radio bursts, FRBs, similarly brief bursts of radio emission arriving from various parts of the sky, really do have an extraterrestrial origin. While most scientists are convinced that these bursts come from stars in our galaxy or others, many enthusiasts still hold out hope that they might be signals from intelligent beings. Having received so many intriguing signals from the depths of space, Earthlings did not remain in debt. Over the last half-century, we have called extraterrestrials dozens of times. The very first to do so were Soviet scientists. In November 1962, 3 messages, Mir, Lenin, and SSSR, were transmitted from the Center for Deep Space Communications in Yevpatoria. All 3 words were encoded in Morse code, with dots and dashes represented by different frequencies. The signals were aimed at utterly lifeless Venus, though in 1962 the absence of life there was far from obvious. A few minutes later, the reflected signals returned to Earth and were recorded by the same equipment. Of course, it was naive to think that potential recipients would be familiar with Morse code. The organizers understood this. The main purpose of the experiment was to test the radar equipment. The most famous message was sent in 1974 from the then-largest radio telescope in Arecibo, Puerto Rico. The astronomers decided not to hold back and tried to contact several thousand stars at once in the globular cluster M13 in the constellation Hercules. If the recipients can decode the message immediately and reply without delay, we might receive an answer around the year 50,000. Decoding it, however, is no simple task. The message consisted of 1,679 bits of information, ones and zeros. Recipients would have to realize that this number could be factored only as 23 by 73. If they arrange the bits into a grid of 73 rows and 23 columns and fill in the cells corresponding to ones, leaving zeros blank, the result is a picture. Although an ordinary person can only make out a human figure at first glance, this small grid encodes the numbers 1 through 10, the atomic numbers of the key elements of life, the structure of the DNA molecule and its components, information about humans and humanity, the solar system, and the transmitting telescope itself. Even the canonical Arecibo message was more of a publicity stunt than a serious attempt to contact extraterrestrial intelligence. Of course, attempts were made to reach nearby, sun-like stars as well. But the overwhelming majority of transmissions were sent mainly to draw attention to the transmissions themselves. concerts played on a theremin, Twitter messages, and slogans like "Brazil, champion" were all beamed into open space. Since the human urge for publicity makes it extremely difficult to receive a real reply to a radio message, why not try delivering a physical package? That, at least, was the approach taken with the Pioneer and Voyager spacecraft, which, after completing their exploration of the solar system, set off toward the stars. The Pioneer probes carried aluminum plaques showing a man and a woman standing beside the spacecraft itself, along with a return address for the Sun based on the distances to several pulsars. The unit of length chosen was the same familiar 21 centimeters, as indicated by a fragment of the plaque. Now, imagine yourself as an alien trying to decode this diagram. On the Voyagers, the team went further and sent an entire gold-plated gramophone record into interstellar space. Engraved on the cover of the protective case were instructions for playing the audio and video material, along with the familiar hydrogen atom diagram and return address. If intelligent beings ever intercept our probes and manage to play the record, they will receive an enormous amount of information in the form of photographs, audio greetings, sounds of nature, and music. The only problem is that cosmic distances are so vast that even stars within the galaxy almost never collide with one another. The probability of aliens ever encountering our spacecraft is vanishingly close to zero. Therefore, at the present level of science and technology, all attempts both to receive and to send interstellar messages are mostly a way of sustaining our hope and belief that in this boundless black void we are, after all, not alone. Thank you for watching the video on my channel Cosmo Dream.